In May 2022, Iran did something it had never done before. It opened a drone factory outside Iran. Not in Syria, not in Lebanon, nowhere near the Middle East. In Tajikistan, a landlocked mountainous country in the middle of Central Asia, closer to Western China than to Tehran. There was a ceremony. Iran's top general flew in. Tajikistan's defense minister stood beside him. The president of Tajikistan personally welcomed what he called defensive and military cooperation. And then, almost nothing. Analysts still can't agree on the basic question. Does the factory actually make drones? Satellite imagery hasn't found a working plant. Several Tajik experts think it never really opened at all. Here's the twist. It may not matter. The factory was never really about drones. It was about a flag to fly them under, a jurisdiction far from Israeli jets and Western inspectors, where made in Iran could quietly become made somewhere else. I'm Bruce Pannier. I spent 4 decades covering the former Soviet Union. This is the Turan Research Center, hosted by the Yorktown Institute, where we break down the geopolitics of Turkey, Iran, the Caucasus, and Central Asia. If you're new here and want more analysis like this, please like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. And now, let's get into it. The announcement came on May 17, 2022, Iran's first overseas drone production facility on Tajik soil. It was built to produce one model, relabeled 2. The opening drew serious people. Mohammad Bagheri, Chief of Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, Sher Ali Mirzo, Tajikistan's defense minister. Bagheri was then received by President Emomali Rahman himself.
Drones in the region are an important thing. Drones are increasingly important in modern warfare. And that was of quite a bit of concern to neighboring countries and to observers and analysts if it really had been the case that Iran would start producing its drones in Tajikistan.
Now here's the first detail worth pausing on, and it's a clue. The relabeled 2 is not Iran's flagship. It's not the Shahid you've seen flying into Ukraine. It's older, cheaper, simpler, roughly 200 kilometers of range, basic design, built to be churned out in volume. If you were going to plant your first ever overseas drone factory, your big showcase project, you might expect to showcase your best drone. Iran picked the disposable one. Keep that in mind. It'll tell you something about what this factory is really for. Before we get to Iran's game, give Tajikistan its due, because Dushanbe had real reasons to want this. Tajikistan is a developing country that needs technology, and military hardware as part of that.
The connection between Iran and Tajikistan isn't just Iran and a Central Asian country. There are long historical ties. There have been questions about how to develop those ties. But just as the Turkic countries have inherently linguistically a type of relationship with Turkey because of shared linguistic roots, you could expect or anticipate that there would be some connection between Iran and Tajikistan, and that has developed over time.
The factory promised localization, manufacturing on Tajik soil, possible technology transfer, investment, jobs. The drones were meant largely for home use, patrolling the long, volatile border with Afghanistan and countering the radical Islamic groups based across it. There's also a strategic logic. Tajikistan leans heavily on Russia, China, and the West for security. Building Iranian drones let it diversify, add a partner, reduce dependence on the usual 3. And there's one more thing that makes Tajikistan unique. It's the only Persian-speaking state in Central Asia. That shared language and culture with Iran smooths the politics and makes transferring know-how easier. So this wasn't a country being tricked. Tajikistan had its own list of reasons. The problem, as we'll see, is that Iran had a very different list.
In Tajikistan, there is very strong Chinese military influence, and there is official mechanism of consultation between China, Tajikistan, and Pakistan. As for Russia, there is official mechanism of CSTO and official exercises of CSTO every year, mostly designed to defend Tajikistan from any threat from Afghanistan. So, of course, in this situation, Tajikistan doesn't need any real Iranian military presence on the territory, but still Iran has some interest, of course.
So, did the factory ever really open? There are basically three answers, and serious analysts hold all three. Theory 1. It never opened. Several Tajik experts believe the whole thing was a corruption scheme, one of the many in the Iran-Tajikistan relationship. Their evidence? Satellite imagery has failed to detect an active enterprise.
Big announcement, lots of fanfare, lots of publicity, deep symbolic significance, the cultural relations I was talking about, and deepening relations. But it doesn't appear to have been the case.
Theory 2. It opened on paper, then got quietly buried. In this version, the Tajik leadership eventually realized how much sanctions exposure it was taking on, made sure the plant never really went operational, and quietly removed the defense minister who championed it. And notice the timing. Mirza was pushed out in January 2025 reshuffle. Iran, meanwhile, got what it wanted, the propaganda win. Officials could report a successful foreign policy operation back to Tehran.
Some experts believe that Tajikistan's government realized that this drone factory could be used by Iran for involving Tajikistan into the conflict in the Middle East and stopped activity of this plant. However, the other experts believe that plant is functioning and that Tajikistan supplied some drones from this plant to Iran under the pretext of humanitarian assistance.
Theory 3. It's quietly working, and there's a piece of evidence that lit up open source analysts in 2026. We'll get to that in a minute.
محترم امام علی رحمان با مردم دوست و برادر جمهوری اسلامی ایران کمک بشردوستانه ارسال گردید.
In March 2026, with Iran at war, Tajikistan sent a large humanitarian aid shipment to Tehran. The official manifest: 3,610 tons of cargo across 110 trucks, medicine, hygiene products, clothing, food, construction materials. But open source and Israeli-linked accounts raised a question. The convoy was unusually large for a country with Tajikistan's limited resources. It crossed without any independent verification, and some alleged the trucks weren't carrying only aid, but drones built in Tajikistan. Now, that allegation is unverified. I want to be clear about that. No one has proven what was on those trucks. But here's why analysts didn't dismiss it. There's a documented precedent. Reuters, citing 9 Syrian, Iranian, Israeli, and Western sources, reported that after the 2023 earthquake, Tehran used humanitarian channels to move weapons to its allies in Syria. Iran denied it. So the Tajik claim remains unproven, but it fits a tactic Iran has already used. And that's the pattern this whole story keeps running into. You can rarely prove it, which it turns out is the entire idea.
They've lost Syria with the fall of Bashar al-Assad, which was, an important land corridor for them to get to Hezbollah in the south. So Tajikistan would be a nice kind of safe area where they can conduct their business. And for the Tajiks, it makes sense too. They will get military aid this way. They will get money. And also they have like a cultural affinity, given that they're the only Persian speaking language in Central Asia as well, in addition to Afghanistan, of course.
Step back, and Iran's plan comes into focus. At the 2022 opening, General Bagheri didn't hide it. He called the plant a turning point and said Iran would produce drones in the Tajik capital, and this is the key phrase, both for its own needs and for supplies to allied and friendly countries. We know who those allies are, the so-called Axis of Resistance, the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon. So from day one, Tajik production was meant to plug into Iran's global drone export network. And Iran has a signature method. It exports the basics first, then upgrades the technology over time, exactly what it did with short-range missiles and drones in Syria and Yemen. That's why the cheap automobile makes sense as a starter. Tajikistan was likely meant to be a bridgehead. Train the people, build the logistics, then move up to more advanced drones later. Here's the part that made Tehran treat this as a breakthrough. Iran had armed and equipped allies for years. But this was different. An official factory in a neutral country with an internationally recognized government. Think of it like a flag of convenience in global shipping. Register your tanker in Panama or Liberia, and suddenly it's not subject to the same scrutiny. Iran was doing that with weapons. Tajikistan offered safe territory, far from Israel and the United States, under far less international attention, at a lower risk of strikes, sabotage, or sanctions. A weapons program that's harder to find is harder to stop. That was the appeal.
Iran has used the same tactics, so a combination of locally produced drones and Iranian-produced drones. So sometimes it is very hard to understand, for example, a drone in Lebanon, where it was really produced. Was it produced by Hezbollah or was it produced by Iran? And when Iran originally opened this plant in Tajikistan, the idea was that production was not only for Tajikistan, but also for Iran itself and for Iranian axis of resistance. So actually, Iran can itself, for example, produce any drones, put Tajik, the stamp made in Tajikistan on this drone, and then the responsibility for this will be on Tajikistan.
This is where the sanctions come in and where the factory's real power lives. Back in April 2022, the U.S. House passed the Stop Iranian Drones Act, amending existing sanctions law to cover combat drones. It extended the threat of sanctions to any foreign entity that supplies, sells, transfers, or supports Iranian UAVs. So joint drone production didn't just give Tajikistan jobs, it gave Tajikistan exposure.
Iran is very good at projecting its power overseas, or certainly in the region. As we know, Iran supplies and supports proxies in countries that don't even border on Iran. You know, you look at the support for the Houthis, well, the Houthis are pretty far from Iran. You look at their support for Hezbollah, their support actually isn't even to their immediate neighbors. So they have no trouble projecting their influence, and they certainly have had an interest in projecting their influence into Central Asia as well.
But watch how the offshore model gets around that. The simplest version, Iranian drone gets exported to a third country with paperwork that names Tajikistan as the origin. A more realistic version is softer. A drone is assembled in Tajikistan, stamped locally manufactured, carries a Tajik label, and from there, given Tajikistan's deep corruption, it can move to almost any conflict zone on Earth. Suddenly, it's very hard to prove Iran was ever involved.
In this case, Tajikistan would get under American sanctions and would be involved into the middle conflict. For example, if the drone with the stamp produced in Tajikistan attacks something in the Middle East, I do not know, Qatar, Kuwait, Israel, American bases, and so on and so forth.
And it can get more sophisticated still. A fragmented supply chain, components sourced from several countries, final assembly in Tajikistan, the true origin blurred both legally and logistically. And here's the proof of how murky it already is. Western and Russian outlets have accused Dushanbe of selling Iranian-designed drones to Russia and to Ukraine.
There is evidence for sure that a lot of the drones that killed, innocent Ukrainian families and children were coming from Iran. So there is a nexus there, and the relationship with Iran and Russia is one that is very transactional. So they definitely use each other, and at this point in time, they need each other. Russia's very preoccupied with what's happening in Ukraine. Clearly, Iran has this war that's entering a new phase with the United States. The Russians have a huge influence still on Tajikistan and the greater Central Asia. So they can both really benefit from using Tajikistan. And again, Tajikistan could use the money and the military aid too. So it seems like a very mutual, beneficial transaction at this point in time.
When both camps are accusing you of arming their enemy, the labeling system is already doing exactly what it's designed to do. Nobody can tell where the drones actually came from. Now, layer on the war. Iran's 2026 conflict with the United States and Israel may leave Tehran bound by new commitments, pressure to abandon the aggressive expansion of the axis of resistance. But a regime doesn't simply stop. If the IRGC can't operate openly, it operates informally. And the obvious way to keep going without breaking an agreement is to move the activity offshore. Remote Tajikistan is built to be exactly that kind of bypass channel, and the door is already open. In April 2025, Iran and Tajikistan signed a memorandum expanding security cooperation, counterterrorism, drug trafficking, organized crime, smuggling. On paper, it's law enforcement. In practice, it widens the space for Iranian military and intelligence activity on Tajik soil. So, a battered Iran has more reason to use this model, not less.
We should understand that there is something like a danger of combination of potential Iranian operations and high corruption in Tajikistan. For example, we already know the case of Zanjani.
Meet Babak Sanjani, an Iranian businessman who admitted to running a network of 64 companies to bypass sanctions and move nearly $17.5 billion to Iran. Some of that money flowed through the Khan investment bank in Dushanbe and through other Zanjani's properties in Tajikistan, an airline, a taxi company, a bus terminal. He had close ties to the Tajik elite. This is documented. In April 2013, the U.S. Treasury's OFAC sanctioned that Dushanbe Bank under the regime covering weapons of mass destruction proliferation. Zanjani was linked to Hatam al-Anbiya, the engineering arm of the IRGC.
Zanjani was connected to IRGC, so this was not just ordinary criminal business. He was connected to Iranian security services. So money were used for some engineering projects by Iranian security services, such as production of nuclear armament. And this is proven by American financial ministry.
Iran later accused him of embezzling $2.7 billion, money he claimed was sitting in a Tajik bank.
Iranian billionaire Babak Sanjani has been sentenced to death for embezzlement. The verdict can be appealed. Sanjani was arrested in December 2013 on suspicion of withholding billions in oil revenue funneled through his companies.
Tajik authorities said the documents were fake. He was sentenced to death. And then in 2025, he was back doing business because the regime still values exactly what he's good at, laundering money and exploiting corruption abroad. Tajikistan, for its part, has ranked among the world's highest money laundering risks. It topped that index as recently as 2018. So the offshore model isn't a theory about what Iran might do in Tajikistan. It's a description of what Iran has already done there with a different cargo.
Iran already did many provocations in the Middle East. It did not practice this so much in the post-Soviet space, but it can do that, especially in the situation when probably its activity in the Middle East would be limited because the axis of resistance is to a significant extent destroyed, mostly because of the change of situation in Syria. And in this case, Iran would probably seek other opportunities.
Whether or not a single Ababil II was ever assembled in Dushanbe may be the least important thing about this story. The factory's real significance is as a template, proof that Iran will plant military-industrial capacity, or sometimes just the paperwork for it, in weakly governed states far from Israeli reach and Western scrutiny.
I doubt that Tajikistan would become controlled by Iran. I don't see it becoming a strong kind of proxy that Iran manipulates. Because friendly as Iran and Russia are, I doubt that Russia would want that either. So Tajikistan is probably going to, for the time being, sit in a balance where it takes advantage of its geographic position kind of, if you will, being really in the sort of middle of four: China, Russia, Iran, and then its neighbor Central Asian states, trying to achieve a balance, but certainly having an opening to Iran because of culture and language.
For Western policymakers, that changes the target. Sanctions enforcement designed for Iranian soil will miss a model built on third country labeling, corruption, and the kind of IRGC influence already documented in Tajikistan. And for Tajikistan, the lesson is sharper still. The very things that make it attractive to Iran, its neutrality, its opacity, its corruption, are the same things that could one day put Dushanbe, not Tehran, on the receiving end of secondary sanctions. Thanks for watching. This video was based on an analysis by research fellow Andrei Kazantsev-Weissman for the Turan Research Center. I'll leave the link in the description if you want to read the full piece. If you found this analysis valuable, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. And let me know in the comments, is Tajikistan a willing partner in this, or a country about to discover it took on someone else's risk?